a little bit strange because we're actually trying to see the graph that's over on that left side of the screen here. But while we're doing that, I'm going to try to actually show you the problems as well. So the first thing says the graph shows above the demand and cost curves of a firm that doesn't price discriminate. Suppose the firm produces at the profit maximizing output, and using the labeling, identify each of the following. So for this, right, I'm trying to make it so that you can actually see here, but it's the same graph that's in your notes. Now, if they're at profit maximizing, then that's where MR equals MC. And if you look, it's a little bit hard to see because of what's covered up here, but we can see that marginal cost, right, is right here, and marginal cost equals marginal revenue at point H. So that level of output at H is Q2. We go up to the demand curve for the price, and then we go over for P5. So level of output is Q2, and then the price is P5. Suppose the firm produces, though, at the revenue maximizing output. Use the labels on the graph, identify the following. So for this one, revenue maximization occurs where marginal revenue is equal to 0. So that's going to be Q3. And revenue is total max at Q3, so the price, if we go all the way up to point D and over, the price is P3. Third item says, suppose the government regulates it to the allocatively efficient level of output. So that's going to be where marginal cost equals the demand curve, or the supply equals the demand. That's at point G, and so the price they would require them to set is P1. That's P1. And the allocatively efficient level of output at point G is Q4. Because again, we're looking for where does MC equal the price, and that's right here. The demand curve kind of tells us that price, so we go down to Q4. Suppose they do produce at that level of output, would they earn a profit or loss? So at point G, we find the ATC, we know P1 is the price, the ATC is higher than point G, so the firm is earning a loss. And that's because, again, the ATC is higher. Then we're going to find that the area of the loss or the profit, the loss is E to G, and then all the way over to P1 and P2. So it's a box, E to G to P1 to P2. E, G, P1, P2. Then the next question says, using the labeling, identify the consumer surplus at allocative efficient. So for E, if we looked over here, we know it's from the price at the allocative efficient level is P1. So P1 all the way to G, that's the demand curve, all the way up to P7. So there's a huge amount of consumer surplus. So P1, G, P7. So that's the area from the price to the demand curve. Suppose they establish a price that allows the firm to cover all its opportunity costs. So that's saying that they break even. So that just means break even. All right, and that is where price equals ATC, or where demand equals the ATC. So demand equals the ATC, all right, we'll kind of move this out of the way, and demand equals the ATC up at point D, and that price is P3. Okay. So a couple of other extensions here. You might think about what's the deadweight loss. So the deadweight loss is G, H, and B, because it's the quantity that the firm is producing when they're profit maximizing over to socially optimal. Another one to think about is if they set a price ceiling, let's say at P1, right, they set a price ceiling there, the government did, what would be the marginal revenue of each one of those units? Well, it would just be equivalent now to P1. So thinking about when they're setting a price ceiling, that just makes the new marginal revenue of each and every unit that level. So hopefully this helps you with understanding this practice problem, an AP problem from 2008, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.